thank you all so much for being here with us to celebrate the life of our beloved Will. He was a husband, a father, a grandfather, a friend, a mentor, a colleague, a healer, and as many of you know, he was a passionate advocate for children. Well, I'm here with my children, and I'd like to introduce them. I'll have to move the camera and myself to do it. But I'd like you to meet Becky, Ivy, David, Diana, Michelle, and I'll have to move the camera so you can see Michelle and Diana. Wave again, Diana. Michelle, there you go. And Michael. Okay. The camera can't capture all of us at once. You may know that Will and I had a partnership based on love and support. We were always there for each other. It was a second marriage for both of us, and we were middle-aged with grown children when we met. But Will promised me 25 years, and we had 37 wonderful ones. He always delivered more than I expected. Will was not religious, yet he was everything that religion would hope a person would be, in his love of family, his pursuit of equity and justice, and the best possible environment for all children. I like to think, and I think physics would support this, that his love and energy will never be lost. Many of his friends and family do have religious faith, and to support them at this difficult time, we will begin with a prayer led by our grandson, Jordan Blechman, in Texas. Jordan?
Howdy, everybody. If you would please join me in our opening prayer. Lord, grant our beloved Will eternal rest. May his soul, through your mercy, rest in peace. Amen.
Thank you, Jordan. I know many of you who are in Will's life share our sense of loss and want to share your thoughts with us. We'll first hear from a few of his colleagues and friends and the family, and then for as long as time permits, we'll open it up to others who put their names in the chat that's on your screen. Please keep your screen on speaker's view and mute unless you're the one speaking. Let's begin with David Lawrence, a dear friend and someone who shared and advanced the mission regarding young children. David?
Dr. Will Blechman is the best teacher I ever had. What I learned from him these past 25 years undergirded what became to be the most important chapter of my life. So I'm going back to 1996, and Governor Childs had asked me to lead a statewide task force on school readiness. I started out as ignorant as I could be. My own life experience hadn't taught me enough. I thought of education as kindergarten, first grade, second grade, and so forth. Bobby's and my 5 children had 2 parents at home, and lots of holding, hugging, talking, reading, and loving. By the age of 2.5, they were in Montessori schools where they learned to play with other children. We had real relationships with a pediatrician. My wife was home when they came home. We didn't always have dinner together, which was the nature of my newspapering life. But unless I was out of town, I always saw them before bedtime when we knelt and said prayers. I knew precious little about other people's children. Dr. Blechman taught me and a whole bunch of other people what all of us need to know. Governor Childs, an especially good man and a wonderful public servant, introduced me to his former chief health officer, Will Blechman. Will showed me the brain scans of orphan Romanian babies who had gotten no love and almost no attention, and consequently had a lot of empty spaces in their brain. He made the case for the earliest years, the vital first 18 months of language development, the vital research that showed if you missed the opportunity of the early years, it is mighty difficult to make it up. the vital and tragic story of the children who never catch up and then so frequently hurt themselves and others. I used Dr. Blechman in 24 critically important community meetings in the summer of 1999, and I used his great gifts for the next 2 decades. Dr. Blechman has been at the core of my community's leadership on the topic. His influence has been a great propellant of progress in our state and in our country, and yes, internationally. You can already see throughout our country pockets of a movement on behalf of all children. We see in our own state the passage of free pre-K for 4-year-olds. We see in my community the passage of the Children's Trust, more than $150 million annually for early intervention and prevention. And when the history of the early movement, the movement for early, is written, that history is going to be incomplete unless the name of Dr. Will Blechman is somewhere high up. So I thank Governor Childs and Rachel Blechman and Kiwanis and so many others for sharing a great man with us. Like you, I love him, and I always will.
Thank you so much, David. We really appreciated those remarks. Next, we're going to hear from Jack Levine, who was a dear friend, a supporter. He's been a terrific supporter of mine too, and a fellow advocate for children. Jack?
Hello, I'm Jack Levine, founder of 4 Generations Institute. You may not know this, but there's an organization of people who did not revere and respect Will Blechman. It has no members, never did. I'm not a member, and I want to bet that neither are you. Will Blechman was a man who was revered and respected because of his love of children, but it was not only his heart that loved children, it was his head that loved children. His capacity to powerfully and persuasively bring others into the cause of children was immense. When I think of Will Blechman, I think of 5 L's, the first of which is life. He respected his own capacity to touch the lives of others, and at 89 years old, he had quite a run of positive, loving leadership. Then there's love. We learn to love and we love to learn. And the thing about Will Blechman is he was motivated by love, the love of his family, of his dear Rachel, but frankly, the love of everybody he met. He was all embracing. His hugs were powerful. His thoughts of love were pervasive. Then there's learning. Will had 2 professional lives. He was a rheumatologist, caring for old people, and then he was a child advocate, advocating the needs of our newborns. And he knew there were lots of newborns. Every day in Florida, 610 newborns. The United States, 11,400 newborns every day. Internationally, 350,000 babies born every day. And he had learned not only about their number, but about their needs, investing in newborns' needs. That was his mission. Then the next L is leadership. He not only empowered others to follow him, he taught others to be leaders. His leadership in Kiwanis was legendary. His leadership at the community level on boards of directors, in public policy was absolutely incontestable. He was really a leader among us all. And then there's legacy. Legacy is a measure about what we will be remembered when we're gone. It's inevitable. The question is, when people will look at pictures of us, what will they say about our impact? When we look at pictures of Will Blechman, that smiling face, that loving nature, that brilliance, we think of making a difference that lasts for generations. Will Blechman was the kind of influence that did not have any limits, because generations do not have limits. Today's newborns will become tomorrow's toddlers, then children. Some will become parents, grandparents, on into future generations. Will's lifelong leadership is loved, respected, and admired. We will all miss him, but if he was to instruct us of where do we go from here is, let's follow his lead. He personified what I call a very important phrase: where there's a will, there's a way. Thank you, Will Blechman.
Thank you, Jack. That was very moving. We're very much appreciated. Next is Phyllis Caleffi, CEO of the Children's Forum, where Will served and who was so special to Will and so supportive of our family. They have provided us with this Zoom platform, which we could have never managed by ourselves. We thank you so much, Denise, Jenna, Ashley, all the staff of the Children's Forum for all that you've done. And Phyllis, we'd love to hear from you.
I'm Phyllis Caleffi, CEO of the Children's Forum, a statewide nonprofit where Dr. Will served on our board of directors. I first met him when I was an executive director for an agency in Panama City, where he gave a presentation on brain development in the late 90s. After his presentation, I recall being so emotionally moved because I kept thinking of all the children who miss out on those important windows of opportunity due to their circumstances in life. When I accepted the position at the Children's Forum in Tallahassee in 2000, I knew that I wanted Dr. Will on our board because of his passion that he shared for the well-being of young children. We worked together for nearly 20 years, and during that time, he never grew weary of fighting the good fight on behalf of children. Whether it was testifying before legislative committees, meeting with advocates and stakeholders, writing letters and op-eds to raise awareness of the issues, consuming research voraciously, and you all know that, and meeting with business leaders and educating them, he never quit. In fact, we were somewhat envious of his energy. It has been said that Will wasn't a religious person, and maybe not in a traditional sense, but I would suggest that he would speak with anyone who would listen about the power we have as a society to change the trajectories for children. Armed with the latest research, he would offer policy solutions for consideration whenever given the opportunity. He never shied away from tough topics, but he was willing to listen to others and consider other perspectives. He would avidly share the importance of intervention whenever given the chance, and he impacted thousands of lives by his advocacy efforts. We were one of the many organizations where Will volunteered his time and talents. You will hear from my other colleagues about his leadership and dogged determination to move the needle from various perspectives. And he taught us much. The most important lesson I've learned from him is never to give up, regardless as to what it currently looks like. We cannot lose heart as long as children are lacking and missing out on the opportunity to experience a kind of early childhood that gives them every advantage to fulfill their potential. I'm wearing purple today in Will's honor. As an organization, we purchased 3,000 books entitled The World Needs More Purple People by Kristen Bell and Benjamin Hart. It is a delightful children's book about purple as a magical color, the color you get when you mix red and blue. And when you're a purple person, you're kind to others and you use your voice to ask lots of questions to make important and wonderful things happen. And it just seemed so appropriate when I read it. And when we raise generations of children who know how to contribute to healthy discourse in a democratic society, we'll all benefit. On the inside of the book, we've inserted a book plate dedicating the book to Will. We were able to get 2,500 mailed out to child care and early learning centers before he passed away. We shared this with Will before he left us. I believe he was very touched. He is truly an amazing example of a purple person, the kind we should all strive to be. In closing, we've lost a special man, a true gentleman, a mentor, a leader, a friend, and a voice for children. He was smart and he was knowledgeable. Theodore Roosevelt once said, "People don't care how much you know until they know how much you care." And that was his gift to us all. He cared deeply and he made each of us feel special, and children are better off because he did. So thank you, Will, and thank you to his family who generously loaned him to us. We will miss him every day.
Thank you, Phyllis. Thank you so much for everything that you've done for us. We so appreciate it. Next is Mimi Graham. Mimi was Will's dear friend and his partner in creating the Florida Association for Infant Mental Health. Mimi.
We are all so honored to celebrate the life of our beloved friend and colleague, Dr. Will Blechman, who enriched all of our lives immeasurably. Will must have had a wonderful early childhood because he mastered life skills learned in kindergarten, being kind, playing well with others, living a balanced life of work and play, and every day to learn something and think some and paint and sing and play and work some. Will was the epitome of a lifelong learner. I was with Will at the first training on the brain science. We had overhead projectors, and he was like a kid at an intellectual candy store. He was delighting in every morsel of the science, which connected the dots between the pivotal first years and lifelong well-being. He was a Yale-trained physician by trade, but he was a persuasive, evangelistic preacher in teaching the early childhood science and converting the skeptics from the legislature to the business community at every opportunity. Will was at the head table for everything good that happened for kids over the past 40 years in Florida. I first met Will at the Developmental Disabilities Prevention Task Force in the 80s, when we published the Florida's Children, Their Future is in Our Hands, which was the basis for Governor Lawton Child's Handicap Prevention Act in the 90s. He led Florida's Docs for Tots, advocating for Florida's Healthy Start and Healthy Kids and Healthy Steps and Early Steps and all good policies for kids. He had a voracious appetite for learning, and you could always find him on the front row with his bald head and his dapper bow tie at the National 0 to 3 annual conferences. That's where we learned about infant mental health and drew up the Florida Association of Infant Mental Health on the back of a napkin in a bar, which Will incorporated into a 501c3. He was the first president, he was the treasurer, and he was the heart of the organization. His leadership and passion helped folks far and wide understand that infant mental health was not a baby on a psychiatrist's bench, but it was the nurturing relationships of early childhood that are essential to lifelong physical and mental health. We were also players in the World Infant Mental Health Association and presented at global conferences. And I laugh remembering walking with Will and our colleague down the streets of Amsterdam and naively entering a coffee shop. But the real high was the inspiring collective impact of our colleagues from all over the world that were amplifying the importance of the first 1,000 days. And Will brought that inspiration home to his beloved Miami Children's Trust, which with his strong advocacy invested heavily in infant mental health and quality childcare and early intervention. He faithfully served on the Children's Forum Board for years, which enhanced professional development, not only in Miami, but all over the state. He taught Minds in the Making, which he loved with the brain science in our partnership with Miami-Dade Community College. And we created an AA degree in infant toddler education, which educated more than 2,500 childcare teachers. He continued to teach and preach to his Kiwanis buddies, galvanizing his army of messengers for babies throughout Kiwanis and Kiwanis International, with young children, priority one, and the establishment of the Will and Rachel Blechman Fund in their honor. Will was the doting, proud grandfather of early childhood in Florida. He learned in kindergarten that no matter how old you are, when you go out in the world, it's best if you hold hands and stick together. And he brings us together yet again today to honor his purpose-driven life, to bring hope to our world, and the science to back up that hope, that someday the prestige of nations will be judged not by the splendor of their buildings and their economies, but by their investments in children. Will knew from kindergarten that the goldfish and the hamsters all die, and so do we. But he also knew from physics that matter is neither created nor destroyed. So as we smell the roses and we feel the breeze, we know that Will is with us. And he'll be the wind beneath our wings as we all strive forward. God bless.
Thank you, Mimi. We really appreciated that. You know, Will was a proud Kiwanian. Kiwanis and its mission of service were a major part of his identity. So we're delighted to have with us Stan Soderstrom, the Executive Director of Kiwanis International and Kiwanis Children's Fund, to talk about Will the Kiwanian. Stan?
Let me begin by acknowledging that we share in this time of sorrow of Rachel, Michelle, Michael, Ivy, and Diana, the grandchildren, and yes, even Mabel, the dog who I had the pleasure of meeting earlier this year. Today is a bittersweet experience for us all. We mourn our loss of Will, yet we celebrate his life. And even more importantly, we commemorate the impact of his life. A life of impact to children in Florida and children around the world. Through the Kiwanis International Organization, his leadership was felt by its clubs and members in every corner of the planet. Our focus on children truly has become our priority. Will joined Kiwanis in 1960 and was eventually elected by his fellow Kiwanians to serve as president of Kiwanis International. In his role as president, Will inspired us to focus on the needs of children from prenatal to age 5, the nutrition needs, the early learning urgencies, and the opportunities to transform families and entire communities became our focus, because our work here could enable children worldwide to reach their full potential. No single Kiwanis International president has had a greater impact upon the global organization than Dr. Blechman. In 1994, because of Will's vision to create a global impact for children everywhere, Kiwanis International launched a partnership with UNICEF to virtually eliminate iodine deficiency disorders, identified by the World Health Organization as the leading preventable cause of mental retardation. These efforts led to more than 90% of the world's population gaining access to iodized salt, and the disorders were truly eliminated. In 2010, as a result of Will's leadership and influence, Kiwanis, again in partnership with UNICEF, set out to eliminate maternal and neonatal tetanus, ultimately reducing the nations that were fighting the scourge of tetanus from 39 to only a handful. His contribution has impacted the lives of millions of children, mothers, and families around the world. In all, the 2 Kiwanis Global Health initiatives would not have happened without Will's vision to make a difference for children and mothers. A financial investment of more than $250 million resulted. And while this number is certainly financially impactful, the more important number lies in the millions of infants and children who were given the opportunity for life. These children and their families will never know that Will lived. They will never understand how his leadership enabled them to survive infancy and childhood. They'll never even know his name. But that attests to Will's unselfish commitment to helping children. Today, we celebrate Will's life and the fact that millions of children are alive today thanks to Dr. Will Blechman. Kiwanians have lost a friend and mentor. In Dr. Will's honor, we must continually speak for children who cannot advocate for themselves. Extend the Kiwanis hand to help children achieve their dreams, and always remember that young children are priority one. Let us commit ourselves to the ongoing work Will inspired in all of us. There are future generations that need us to continue Will's life of commitment to create a future in the lives of young children in communities everywhere. Thank you.
And thank you, Stan. We really appreciate that. Next is Bob Moore. Bob and Jan Moore are friends and fellow Kiwanians. Bob was the lieutenant governor when Will was Kiwanis governor of Florida, and then became international president after Will held that post. So Bob, you're on.
I want to thank Rachel and the family for inviting me to speak today. In 1977, I was a lieutenant governor-elect sitting in a hotel ballroom to start my training. And a voice from offstage said, "I didn't pick any of you, but you will determine if our year is successful." That was my introduction to Will Blechman, my mentor, my friend, and the most important man in my life other than my dad. That year was the most successful in the history of the Florida district. Will called all of his lieutenant governors on Sunday night. And by the time he came to me and I was near the end, it was between 10:30 and 11 p.m. Back then, divisions 1, 2, and 3 were in the Panhandle and on Central Time Zone. I never understood why Will went in numerical order. I will admit I was afraid to not be prepared. Will's drive, oversight, and example resulted in a strong year in our division, culminating in 9 distinguished presidents. We all know that Will was a bow tie man. His year as governor of the Kiwanis International Convention was in Miami Beach. And at the convention, we always had a board meeting. So prior to the convention, I contacted all the lieutenant governors and asked them to wear ties to the board meeting. Will started the meeting. About halfway through the meeting, he stopped, put down his papers, took off his glasses, and grinned because he just realized that we were all wearing bow ties. And because of Will's recommendation, Stu Jacobs, when he was governor of the Florida district, appointed me to be a district chair and started me on my Kiwanis journey. Will, Stu Jacobs, and Doc Baker, all past governors from the Miami area, took me under their wings and counseled me for nearly 20 plus years until I completed my term as international president. Doc was also Will's mentor. And every time I went to Miami, whether for business or pleasure, they met me for lunch. And Doc and Stu had really dry senses of humor, which many in this audience would know. And so the meetings were not only informative and instructive, but they were fun. I was governor of the Florida district the year after Will was international president. He had introduced Young Children Priority 1 as our Kiwanis major emphasis. And after his year as international president, he went to work for Governor Lawton Chiles of Florida on children's issues. In that capacity, he asked if I and some other leaders in the Florida Kiwanis district would meet with him and Governor Chiles in a hangar at the Miami International Airport. At that meeting, Governor Chiles asked if Kiwanis would help raise the immunization level of children 5 and under, which was 63% at that then current rate, to 90%. We agreed. Each division bought into the program, and the next several years, the immunization level was raised to almost 90%. It was successful in large part because of Will's enthusiastic support and his encouraging each division to be involved. Will and past international presidents Bill Lieber and John Morton and past International Foundation President Larry Hapgood were the leaders of an effort to determine if Kiwanis should do a worldwide service project, and if so, what that project would be. A committee was formed to determine if such a project would be supported by the membership and to select a project. I was fortunate enough to be on that committee with Will and other leaders of Kiwanis. Will, in his usual way, had contacted in advance several organizations to recommend potential projects that would virtually eliminate a known health problem. Instrumental in the committee's decision was our chance to work with UNICEF, one of the organizations Will had brought to the table. We agreed to work with UNICEF to virtually eliminate iodine deficiency disorders, or IDD. Will and I then served on the committee to implement IDD. When Kiwanis and his partners started this project, roughly 15% of the world had access to iodinated salt. The last I heard, 85% of the world had access to iodinated salt. Needless to say, this project greatly enhanced the reputation of Kiwanis on the world stage as a dependable ally in advocating for children. The IDD project continues to change the lives of millions of children and adults around the globe. We all recognize Will was a visionary who worked tirelessly to make his visions become reality. I was fortunate to work with him to help implement some of his visions. Over the years, Will and I have stayed in close contact at countless Kiwanis events, breakfasts, lunches, and dinners. Also with tons of email, text, and telephone conversations generated mainly by Will, and I'm sure many of you here today know about that. In the last year, we shared conversations, emails, and texts on a variety of subjects dealing with Kiwanis, literacy, COVID, and even politics, not just Kiwanis politics. Shortly before he died, we had a telephone conversation and ended up discussing how we met and the adventures we had had together. We were thankful our lives were so intertwined. That's Will's word, not mine. As we closed the conversation, knowing it was perhaps our last, Will commented that we had accomplished a lot of good things that improved the lives, and particularly the lives of children. From that day in the ballroom in 1977, and for the rest of my life, Will Blechman was an inspiration to me. He leaves a legacy that cannot be matched. He was and is my mentor, my friend, and I will miss him.
Thank you so much, Bob. Next, we're going to hear from Diana Ragbeer Murray, a fellow Kiwanis Club member and a person Will cherished and respected. Diana.
It's such an honor to be able to speak about my memories, my fond memories of Dr. Will Blechman. Will was a father figure to me, literally. And I'll take you back to when I first met him. He served as the vice chair of the Children's Trust Board. I was what we call the Tallahassee person, the legislative liaison policy director for the Children's Trust. And Dr. Will just taught us so much about brain development and early childhood development. He was quiet, but everything he said was so on point, so remarkable. I actually thought he was a neurologist. I thought he was a neuroscientist. I thought he was sort of from the field of brain development for a long time, and learned shortly after that this was something he did in his retirement years after his successful practice as a rheumatologist, the other end of the spectrum. Suffice to say, I met Will again in his role for Kiwanis, and he asked me at the first 1000 Days conference years ago in Palm Beach, in the middle of the hallway, Diana, will you join Kiwanis? And I did not know exactly what Kiwanis was. I had an idea it was a civic organization like the Rotary Club or the Lions. So, I have never been able to tell Dr. Will no. He seldom asks anything, but when he does, it's very important. And so I said, yes, Will, I will join. When do I show up? Where? And so we went off to my first meeting, the Kiwanis Club of Northeast Miami-Dade, the club that Will belonged to, and realized shortly after that there was no early childhood component. They were focused on school-age children. And so he and I decided to create an early childhood committee, and the rest is history. He then met me for lunch one day and at the end handed me a large 3-ring binder called The World's Greatest Baby Shower for Titusville and said, can we do one of these? And I looked at it, it was about that thick, and I said, sure, Will, why not? We did. In 2019, we held our first World's Greatest Baby Shower in Miami-Dade, expanded the model, had 10 different sessions for parents, over 600 parents attended. It was fantastic, and he was so pleased and so thrilled. And then COVID hit, and we decided to take this initiative to a virtual world with a website and newsletters, and then to a drive-through baby shower. And all of those with Will by my side, and just had the best time conferring with him, communicating with him about what do you think about a breastfeeding article. He was so knowledgeable on anything and so supportive. He was a father figure to me. He always remembered to ask about my family, my husband, my sons, my mom, and we became pretty close, and I will miss him dearly. I think of Will as someone who was very humble and steady and mild-mannered, but he was a fierce champion for children. That is the perfect embodiment of someone we need in this field who is able to be calm and collected and humble and just insert himself at the right time with the right questions, with the right information. And he is unwavering. The last thing we worked on together was to try to get the Miami-Dade County Mayor, Mayor Daniela Levine Cava, who we've both known for a long time, to create a children's commission for early childhood development. And Mayor Cava announced that she was going to do that the day he passed. And I was able to share that email with him. And I do believe he was waiting for that information, among other things. But I was able to have that communication with Will. I will never forget him. I know he's going to continue to guide us from above. And we will continue to do good things for children together. Onward, Will. We love you always and forever.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Diana. Now we're going to hear from Michael Blechman, our son, who speaks for his sisters and our grandchildren. I'm going to turn the camera. Oh, I don't need to turn the camera. There you go.
Hi, I'm Mike, Will's son. You might not know me, but a lot of you know my wife, Amy, who shared my father's passion for the need for early childhood education and programs. I've been asked to speak on behalf of the family, children, and grandchildren, and to try and show a human side to our father. To me, this begs the question, how do you humanize a Superman? I thought I'd share a story or two. It is widely known in our family that we all got our sweet tooth from our father. It all started for him as he worked with his father in their drugstore. As he would clean up, he would make himself a scoop of chocolate ice cream. And then it would become 2 scoops of chocolate ice cream. And then 3 scoops of chocolate ice cream. And then 4 scoops of chocolate ice cream. He never got past 4 scoops. But he would tell this story to all of us kids and the grandkids, and he loved ice cream. Anyhow, I would bring a couple of my kids down with me every once in a while to Miami to help out at the house. And one time we brought a pie, and my father said when we were done with work, he would let us all have some pie as a treat. Well, when we finished working, my father said, "Let me show you some simple math." And there were 4 of us, and he took the pie and cut it in fourths and handed everybody a piece of pie. To this day, my kids think that that's how you eat a pie. It's a wonderful thing. Our parents love to have the grandkids come down and visit, all 5 of them. And every visit down would end with a trip down to Whip and Dip, a local ice cream parlor in South Miami. And of course, my father would have chocolate ice cream. Although he loved his sweets, he loved bringing all of you together just as much to further what he believed to be his purpose, his goal, his fight. Till the end, he never stopped that fight and looks to us to carry that torch a little farther for ourselves, the children, and mankind itself. I want to thank you all for being here today, and I'd like to follow this up by showing a short video filmed by the Lawton Childs Foundation. The video graciously provided to us by Kitty and Bud Childs. Sincere thanks to them and the Childs Foundation for the film you're about to see. Thank you very much.
Very nice.
How is it that a rheumatologist who only treated adults is the 2018 Child's Advocacy Award recipient? Well, let's see. Will Blechman was born in Washington, D.C. on May 7, 1932. His father was a pharmacist, and Mom worked in the store in addition to her role as mother and housewife. According to Mom, Will was a cute kid. At Yale, he met his future wife, Sidel. They were married prior to his junior year in medical school. Children Michelle, Michael, and Ivy Beth completed the family. In 1961, Will entered practice as a rheumatologist in North Miami Beach. That year, he also joined the North Miami Beach Kiwanis Club and found the service component of Kiwanis meaningful. He led Kiwanis clubs throughout Florida into a blood pressure screening program with the Red Cross and Florida Heart Association as partners. Thousands of people were screened, with many sent immediately to their doctors or emergency rooms for undiagnosed or uncontrolled hypertension. Later, Will and Sidel were in California and learned of a program which put handicapped children on horseback as therapy. Will introduced this concept to Kiwanis in South Florida, and the first such program in Florida was developed and continues to this day. Then, on vacation in Arizona in 1983, Sidel suffered a severe ankle fracture. She underwent surgery. Within 12 hours, she had a blood clot to her lungs and died. Life goes on. In 1984, Will was introduced to Rachel, an attorney. A year later, they were married, adding Diana to the list of children, and eventually 5 grandsons. Will continued his Kiwanis activities, leading to increasingly higher offices, and in 1990-91, the presidency of Kiwanis International. In this role, he introduced a program focusing on children, ages prenatal to 5 years, to Kiwanis clubs worldwide. Called Young Children Priority 1, it includes such projects as donations of equipment required for very young children in hospitals and ambulances, working with a university in Malaysia to bring Down syndrome children out of the closet and into special childcare, and Schools Plus programs to improve nutrition of children. Alabama Kiwanians joined with Reading is Fundamental to provide books to every Head Start child in the state, a program that continues today, 27 years later. It was also during this period that Will heard Rosalind Carter speak of the problems getting children immunized by age 2. Governor Lawton Chiles helped stimulate a Kiwanis, Florida Health Department partnership to increase 2-year-old immunization rates. Over 8 years, the rates rose from 61 to 89%, helping prevent illness such as this child with tetanus has. Will then learned of problems of inadequate iodine intake in pregnant women and young children. Kiwanis joined with UNICEF to combat iodine deficiency disorders, which can damage the developing brain, yet can be prevented by the simple addition of iodine to salt. Kiwanis has raised more than $100 million, allowing UNICEF to work locally and with governments worldwide to iodize salt, with rates now in the 90% range. UNICEF has stated that this was one of the most successful public health programs of the 20th century. In 1994, as research on early childhood brain development became published, he recognized its importance and added the topic to his presentations. That year, he was appointed Florida's State Health Officer by Governor Chiles. And in 2000, this rheumatologist co-founded with Mimi Graham the Florida Association for Infant Mental Health and became its charter president. Will served as vice chair of the Miami-Dade Children's Trust and is presently vice chair of the Children's Forum. He was appointed to the board of the Lawton Chiles Foundation in 2008. In addition, Will serves on the board of the Miami-Dade United Way Center for Excellence and as chair of its health committee. Among Will's awards are the Early Childhood Advocacy Award from Miami-Dade County Public Schools, Outstanding Community Service by a Physician, the Hannah G. Solomon Award for Contributions to Children, the Nancy D. Thomas Award for collaborations benefiting children. Even now, as evidenced by the materials on your tables, Will is still promoting programs to benefit children. This one is for Vroom, which he feels is underutilized in helping all parents better understand how they can help build their babies' brains.
As we open up the floor for everybody to share their comments about our father, please limit yourself to 2 minutes. We are timing. Thank you.
There are a number of people in the chat who want to speak. Please forgive us if we don't get to all of you. I'm going to start first with those who spoke with me about being recognized. But don't worry if we don't get to you. The entire event is recorded and your comments will be saved, and we really do appreciate those comments. I'm going to start with Deborah Zane. Deborah?
I'm here. I'm trying to open my video. Can you see me?
I'm going to put speaker's view on.
And everybody,
No, there you are.
here I am.
It's
Hello?
so good to see you.
So nice to see you. It's so nice to see everybody. And I just want to say, I cannot believe what a long and rich life Dr. Blechman was able to lead, because the majority of these speakers are speaking about the chapter of his life after his rheumatology practice. And I really only know him from the rheumatology practice, and I can't believe it. So I'll begin by saying hello. I'm Deborah Zane, and I'm the daughter of Dr. Sheldon Zane, who was Dr. Blechman's longtime partner in their rheumatology practice. And I'll say a few words on behalf of my late parents, Shelley and Elaine Zane, and my brother Stephen, and my sisters Bonnie and Mindy. We know our father felt tremendous happiness in the workplace alongside Dr. Blechman, with whom he spent a significant portion of his life. They were an unlikely pair, with Will always appearing neat as a pin, sporting his signature bow ties and his relaxed manner. Shelley was a little rougher around the edges, appearance-wise, but just as kind and caring with their patients. Dr. Blechman and Dr. Zane were beloved physicians in their field, and we believe they enjoyed the admiration and appreciation of their patients and coworkers throughout their professional lives. And I want to say for 1 second, I think I saw Mary Hassel is on this video, and I want to say hello, Mary, and sending you love. My brother Stephen remembers Will and Michael Blechman making a strong supportive case for why Stephen should attend Tulane University, a decision Stephen always felt was one of his best. My sisters and I remember the annual pancake breakfast we'd attend as a family to support Dr. Blechman and his Kiwanis group, and those were some good pancakes. And finally, I will never forget how Dr. Blechman seemed to stop everything he was doing when I called from Reykjavik, Iceland, to let him know my father was in the ICU. Will emailed me with ideas based on research he conducted online to see if the doctors in Reykjavik had considered this medication or that test. And I brought all of Will's ideas to the doctors and nurses in the ICU the next morning. And they took all of Dr. Blechman's questions and analyses very seriously. They were open to hearing what this learned American doctor who knew our father so well had to say. And it broke my heart to let Will and Rachel know that our dad had passed, and it has broken all of our hearts to now say goodbye to Will. But the thing is, it just really strikes me that Will and Shelley were lucky to have found each other and to have been happily together for as long as they were, and the Blechman and Zane families benefited from their deep, deep connection. Thank you, Rachel.
Thank you, Deborah. That was wonderful. I remember your mother used to say, Elaine Zane, your mother, who I miss very much, used to say, they were remarkable. Will had a practice and he learned, he wanted to add a partner, and he learned about Shelley. So he met Shelley in the Washington airport and they conversed, and he shook hands and decided to practice together. And that was it. They never had a harsh word between them or a written document. And they had a marvelous practice for over 30 years. And only Shelley and Will could have pulled that off.
Yes.
It was just wonderful.
Fine, fine men, yes.
Yeah, it makes me very happy to think about it.
Thank you, yes. And my condolences to the whole family. It's nice to see everyone back there.
Thank you, Deborah. Mary, are you there, Mary? Mary can talk about Will the doctor too.
I'm here, Rachel. I
I'm
have
so
been
glad.
listening to all of this, and it just goes through my mind. How many faces does one person put to the world? I am watching Ivy in the background, who brings back all these memories. You haven't changed, Ivy. Get over it. Maybe it's my vision, but you look the same. And all I could think of is there's little Ivy, and of course I've already told Michael, little Michael, and Michelle. And I have such memories of the dinners at your home, and your mom teaching my kids to swim, and all those wonderful things. And it was a lifetime ago. It was probably, we would have to say, Will Blechman, the early years. I worked with Will from June of 65 through June of 90, 25 years, usually 5 days a week in the medical office. I was never intimidated for one moment.
Oh, we've lost Mary. Oh, I must say, I'm sorry we lost Mary. Mary was the office manager for the Blechman, Zane, Leshner, and Galis practice. And more than that, she was a dear friend of Will's. And even after he left practice, went out in the world and became a child advocate, Mary was always on the list of people he checked in with and had lunch with and venerated. So thank you, Mary, so much for talking with us. Dave Lipkin, are you there? Have we got Dave Lipkin on? Well, I'll move along. Ruth Greenfield. Ruth?
I'm right
Okay,
here,
go ahead.
Rachel. Rachel, I didn't really know that much about his Herculean work. I just suddenly met him one evening when we were all together at a literary event, and I needed somebody to talk to about my illness. As we came out, as a hypochondriac that I am, I began to talk to your husband, tell him everything about my body, was very publicly intimate. And finally, he answered me. It wasn't like a doctor behind a desk. It was a doctor at your bedside. And I must say that he took so much time to relate to the different agonies that I expressed. So I know him as a humanitarian.
Thank you, Ruth. He loved you. Thank you. Lou Matiso, are you there? Lou?
I'm here.
There you go. We can even see you, so that's good.
I figured I'd wear a bow tie tonight again. Well, you know, I don't know. I didn't know. Why? I still can't use a past tense. I'm sorry. I didn't know Dr. Will as long as some of these other people. You know, I've known him through my 10 years in Kiwanis. When I first joined Kiwanis with the Biscayne Bay Kiwanis Club, Dr. Will came as as a guest speaker, and he was introduced to me, and somebody said, "This is Lou, our PR guy." He said, "You're the one that's been getting all that coverage for Kiwanis." I said, "Yes." He said, "Good, we could use you." I didn't realize how prophetic those words were going to end up being. Anytime Dr. Will wanted some PR done, whether it was for his club, for a club in Florida, for anything that was that he was thinking about, I got the call. And two quick instances, I was here in my office, and for some reason my phone, which usually is connected to me at my hip, was in the other room. The phone rang, and Millie, who's sitting here beside me, walked in, and as she's walking in, she says, "Dr. Will." So I get on the phone, she goes back to the kitchen, I'm done, I go in for dinner, and the first thing is, "What's your assignment? What are you working on?" And I've never met a man who was so focused about children in my life. He made me a better Kiwanian. When he was first in the hospital, I had called him to see how he was doing. And we ended up talking, and I ended up taking a piece of paper out and starting to write notes because he had something he wanted me to do. And from that, you know, I became an early member of Team Blechman. Everybody else has already said all these great things, and they've stolen my thunder. I thought, I really, I mean, you know, I definitely thought of him as a mentor. It seems strange for a 70-year-old to say that somebody was their mentor. I used to joke with him when I would see him at an international conference. I say, "You know, Dr. Will, when I grow up, I want to be just like you."
Mm-hmm.
And I cherished him as a friend. And the fact that the two of you asked me to be on the beginning of the Will and Rachel Blechman Foundation, and the fact that we all sat there and talked about logos, and you didn't like the smiley faces that we put on the balloons, so we took those off. These are memories I will never, ever forget. Every time I'm involved in anything with Kiwanis, I do better because I've known Will Blechman. And sorry I said that, Dr. Will. I still can't, I can't call him Will. To me, he's Dr. Will. And indeed, no person outside of my father has influenced me like this. I wish your family well. I've never met any of them. I'm waving, so there's little so-and-so and little so-and-so. There you go. And we're here. If you need, I love the award that's right there on the table in front of the kids. There you go. The Legacy Award. I accepted it on behalf of your mom and dad at the last Kiwanis convention, and brought it to them just a couple of weeks before your dad passed. And thank you for this opportunity. And I'm going to go do a little crying right now. Sorry.
Thank you so much, Lou. Lou, you did so much to help us initiate the foundation. We really appreciate everything that you did. You and Millie met us for lunch or brunch or breakfast. I'm not sure which one it was. And it was born out of that meeting. So I thank you both. And I know Will appreciated it very deeply. Thank you. Barb Thompson. Are you there?
I am here, and thank you for calling on me. I want to represent past International President Jim Rochford, who's unable to be here, but he asked that I pass on these comments. The first international convention I went to was when he was president in Anaheim, and it sold me on going to international conventions thereafter. He is on my Mount Rushmore list of past international presidents. That's from Jim Rochford. And I just, I want to say that I think it's amazing that both you and Dr. Will have the room in your hearts and the time in your lives for all of the people on this call and beyond. And I first met him at my first international convention. I didn't meet him. I went to a presentation he was making on early childhood education, and it affected my professional career and influenced our early childhood education. And thereafter, I didn't even look at what he was presenting. I just went to everything that Will Blechman presented. And I'm a better person for all of that. And I agree with the previous speaker that he made me a better Kiwanian. I got to work with him in Eliminate and so many other places. And finally, I want to tell a reason that his life will go and legacy will go on forever. My home club has just adopted literacy buddies from the Florida state, I believe, early literacy program. And we are doing that with a local early childhood center and making a difference in the lives of those children. And that's part of his legacy. And I just see that it goes on forever. And I appreciate him and you and your family very much. Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate that. Lawrence Percival.
Hi, Rachel. Hello, Blechman family.
Hi.
I want to start off by saying something humorous. In the early 2000s at a Kiwanis Club meeting, I told everyone there that Will was a doctor of rheumatology. And they said, what is that? I said, you know, the origin of how rumors get started. Of course, Will didn't like that so much, but nonetheless, he did have a sense of humor about things. I got to know him from my early years in Kiwanis in the early 1980s, And Rachel, I actually think I met Will before you did. You got married in 1985. So one of my claim to fame is I know you both from your career in Holland and Knight and my involvements in the 25 plus years in Kiwanis with Will. And in 1995, he asked me to serve on Lawton Childs' Healthy Start Coalition. So here in Dade County. So I served for 5 years on the Healthy Start Coalition that assured that healthy mothers had healthy babies, and we worked to prevent teenage pregnancy prevention. And over the years of my Kiwanis involvements with the city, with the South Miami Kiwanis Club, which later became Miami Kiwanis Club, I've raised lots of money for the various programs that Will championed. And as I told you, the Saturday before Will passed, I had the privilege and honor of being able to speak with him for nearly an hour before he passed the following Thursday, I believe it was. And I mentioned to David Lawrence that I had that conversation, and he said, yes, you are very fortunate and lucky to have had the chance to speak with him. There are so many things that all of you have said today that are just wonderful things about Will that we can all embrace and remember. And I hope that I can have a legacy in my future that picks up and carries on for the things that Will has set the stage for, that hopefully many of us will continue to be champions and carry the banner for the great things that Will has done. And we all can do our parts going forward. Thank you, Rachel, and God bless all of your family.
Thank you, Lawrence. That was lovely and much appreciated. I think I've gotten everyone who put their name in the chat. If I've missed you, please let me know by putting your name down. Otherwise, I want to thank all of you from the bottom of my heart for sharing your memories and thoughts about Will with us tonight. We will all miss him very much. We want to end this session that we've shared memories in with a Kaddish led by our grandson, Jordan Blechman. And if you wish, you can stand while he's reciting it. The words will be up on the screen. Jordan?
Stand. Stand.
If everyone would please join me in the Mourner's Kaddish. Yit Kadal, Yit Kadash, Shemei Rabbah, Ve'alma Divrach Yote, Ve'amlich Malchute, V'chayachon U'vyomechon U'v'chayed Hol Bet Yisrael. Ba'agala U'vizmin Kari V'imru, Amen. Yehe Shemei Rabbah, Me'arak Le'olam U'me'el Maya. Yit Barak V'yishtabak, V'yit Pa'ar, V'yit Romam, V'yit Naseh, V'yit Halal, V'yit Halel, Shemei Dekusha Berechu. Le'elam Yechol Berakata, V'shirata, Tush Bechata, V'nechemata. Daminran Ve'alma V'imru, Amen. Yehe Shalama Rabba Min Shemaya, V'chaim Alein Ve'kol Yisrael, V'imru, Amen. Oseh Shalom B'mromav, Huya Aseh Shalom, Aleinu Ve'kol Yisrael, V'imru, Amen.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you for being with us. Thank you again for sharing with us. Good night.
Good night. God bless
Bye.
you.